Good morning, Morai Rabotai, Beruchim Abayim. We're continuing on Masechet Succah. We are on Daf Lamed Zayin, Amud Aleph, by the two dots in the middle of the Amud. Today's Amud is being learned as a Zchut Rufa Shalema for Esther Bracha Bat Chaya, Rachel Simcha Bat Nahid, Michael Ben Nahid, Avraham Jamshid Ben Tajgol. Today's Amud is also being learned as a Aliyat Neshama of Jacqueline Bat Avraham. This month's learning of the community has been dedicated graciously by the Shea family, Cohen family, and Dayan families. It should be an ultimate zchut for all of their mishpachot, Be'ezrat Hashem, Amen. So we started the discussion of how do you take the Arba Minim. We spoke about the kashrut of each one of the Arba Minim. We spent the whole Mishnah and Gemara on the kashrut of Arba Minim. Then we had a discussion of how do you tie, or do you have to tie the Arba Minim together, the Lulav, Hadas, V'Arava. And now we started a discussion of how do you take them? Can you have gold strings? Is that considered maybe a Hatzitza? Can I have my gloves on? Can I hold it with a handkerchief? Right? Many communities still have things that are attached to the bundle, so to speak, of their the Lulav. Many communities, they have extra hadassim, like we're talking about like dozens of extra hadassim that are attached to it. So that we already spoke that that's mimino, it's not chotzes. We're going to have it again in the days Gemara. And Gemara now is going to discuss having chute zahav, perhaps gold strings for the beautifying of the lulav, and of course, holding it through something else is going to be the major topic of today's Amud. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Meir Omer afilu b'meshicha, that you could also have it tied together, lulav hadas v'arava, with a string, with a rope. And Rabbi Meir brought a story. The story goes, Tanya Amar Rabbi Meir, Maaseh b'Akirei Yerushalayim, the rich and famous people in Yerushalayim who wanted to glorify the mitzvah, they would wrap their lulav, instead of using a little string strip of a leaf of lulav, they would use gold strings. Beautiful. That says, very much aligned with the parashiot of the week, of the gold strings in the Bigdei Kehuna, which, like the Rishonim write, that this also was the kingly garments and outfits of the royal families at the time. She says, well, that's how they would do it. Amrulo, they told Rabbi Meir, that's not a raya that they would, string them together and tie and bound the lulav hadas v'arava with gold, because that's the question. The question is, according to Rabbi Yehuda, for instance, that lulav sarich eged, that you need to bind them together. Can you have something else aside from the Arba Minim, or does it have to be like Shitav Rabbi Yehuda? It has to be bound together from one of the species of lulav. Rabbi Meir says, no, it doesn't have to be, and I have a story to tell because Yakirei Yerushalayim used to do it. Chachamim told Rabbi Meir, that's not a raya. They only did that to beautify the bundle, but it was bundled already from before the gold came. So they took a strip of a leaf of lulav, they tied it together, then for beautification they put some gold on top just for design. They would do it with lulav from beneath, and then on top they would do gold. Right? We mentioned that the Meiri says either the gold was on top, like literally on top of the lulav, or milamala means there would be a little higher up on the lulav, and lower down was the actual bundling with the lulav strings. Says the Gemara, Amalahu Rabba, laharahu migadreo shana deberesh galuta. He was giving advice. It's the third time that the Chachamim are speaking to the Resh Galuta's family, right? So there were people apparently in charge of all the lulavim of the family, the household, and the entourage of Resh Galuta. So Rabbi went and gave them like a practical halacha. He says, when you bundle these lulavim, be very careful not to bundle it on the bottom where the hand holds it, there you only want to have your hand touch lulav hadas arava, not the bundle. Why? Because that's going to be chatzitza. That's what Rabbah told the Megadale, Hoshana de Beresh Kaluta. Ki gadlitu Hoshana de Beresh Kaluta, when you are bundling this, tying it together, Shairu be bet yad, leave room for the hand to hold it without having to touch the ties, the bundle. Ki hechi deloteve chatzitza. In order that it shouldn't be chatzitza. That's Rabbah. Now, we're going to have, for the entire Amud of today, we're going to have a lot of back and forth between Rabbah and Rava. Rabbah being Machmir, Rava being Mekel. That's how the Amud is going to manifest. So Rava Amar, the first one is here. Rabbah said, no, this is not chatzitza. You could have the bundle and you could touch over it. You could hold the lulav hadas v'arava on top of the bundle, and there is no problem. Because kol lenaoto eno chotzitz, anything that's coming to beautify the lulav, it is batel, it is considered nullified to the bundle, to the whole thing, and anything that's batel and nullified to it, it's not an issue of chatzitza. So therefore, we have no problem with it, right? That's Rava.
Are we talking about benino or the gold? Which one?
Simply put, is anything. Anything that is...
Even if it's the same material?
It would seem so, yes. Because if it's batel to it, so then it's batel to it, right? As we'll see, so says Gemara. V'amar Rabba, another halacha that became a point of contrast between Rabba and Rava is also in regards to holding the lulav. Ve'amar Rabba lo linkit inish hoshana besudara. You should not have a handkerchief or a glove, for that matter, to hold your lulav when the handkerchief or the cloth is separating between your hand and the lulav, because obviously that's also chatzitza. When you have to hold the lulav, the ba'ina lekichatama, it says ulkachtem, and we dash in lekichatama, it has to be an absolute taking. An absolute taking means your hands should be touching it. That's how you take it. It has to be lekichatama, and here there is no lekichatama if you're not touching it. Rabba says, no, it's not a problem to hold it with that, because lekicha al yedeh davar acher shema lekicha. If you are holding the lulav, even if something is between your hand and the lulav, it's still who's holding the lulav? You're holding the lulav, right? You are holding this lulav at the end of who's holding it? The handkerchief is not holding it, you're holding it. And that's all you need. It's not a chisaron of lekichat hama when you have this. You're the cause, you're the one that's actually holding it. So Rava says, I understand that I have to prove this to you, because I'm saying a chidush, so I'm going to bring a proof. Mena aminala. How do I know that when you hold something with a barrier between you and it, it's still considered that you are taking it, right? In the language of Torah. Because again, here is, we're darshaning the language of Torah. Torah says, ulkachtem, you have to take it. Maybe it actually means that you have to take it. Maybe you can't have anything in between, right? How do I know that if I'm holding it through something else, with something being a barrier, still is considered that I'm taking it? I have to prove it from the psukim. So says Rava, no problem, I could do that. I'll show you other areas of the mitzvot in the Torah that the Torah says, ulkachtem, that you should take. And we know the halacha is you could take it through something else. That would be fair enough, right? Of course it would be fair enough. Ditnan, says the Mishnah, Ezov katzer, when you do efer paraduma, when you want to go through the process of hazaat me para, a person that's tameh met, right, and other levels of tum'ah, that they need the 7 days process of tahara. On the 3rd and the 7th day, you will sprinkle on them efer paradumam. The Mishnah says in Masechet Parah, you would have to have ezov, right? And this branches of ezov you would have to to dip in efer para that's mixed with the water, and then sprinkle this water of efer para with the ezov on the person, right? Now, what do you do if the branches of ezov that you have are very short? You couldn't find long ones, or they broke last time that you sprinkled. Now they're short, right? That's all you got. Now you want to put it inside this long thing of the water of para aduma. It doesn't go in; it's gonna fall in. So how do you dip it in? So the Mishnah says, again in Masechet Para, Perek Yud Bet, ezov katzar. If you have a short ezov, mesapeko bechut ubekush. You could tie it with a string, or you could stick a rod to it, vetovel, and then you dip it with that, right? Umale, and then you take it up from the from this long vessel, ve'ochez be'ezov umazeh, and then you take the ezov and you sprinkle. That's the Mishnah in Perek Yud Bet Masechet Para. So the Gemara says, wait a second, what's the language of the pasuk? By dipping and taking this ezov and sprinkling it, it says, "Velakach vetaval amar Rachmana." Now the full pasuk on the side reads, "Velakach ezov." You should take ezov, like talk about ulkachtem lachem bayom harishon peri etz hadar. Here also, "Velakach ezov." The Torah says you have to take the ezov and dip it in the water. Velakach ezov, vetaval b'mayim ish tahor, v'yiza al ha'ohel v'al kol ha'kelim v'al ha'nefashot asher hayu sham v'al ha'nogea be'etzem o b'chalal o bemet o b'kaver. That's the full pasuk. But velakach ezov, it says you have to take ezov. And the Mishnah says you're not taking it in your hand. You have a rod stick into it, and you're holding the rod. And that's called velakach ezov. You have a string attached to it, you're lowering it into this shefoferet with the string, and that's considered velakach ezov. You're not lakach ezov, you're lakach the string. So you see, lekichal yedid davar acher, says Rava. It's awesome, right? Absolutely genius. So I found a place that the Torah says velakach, and you're not actually touching the thing, you're holding it through something else. And it's considered holding it, right? That sounds like a checkmate. So it says, well, no, not so fast, right? How can you get out of this? Easy. Says the Gemara, Ela lafshma mina lekicha li davar acher shma lekicha. Isn't that a proof that holding it through something else is considered holding it? The Gemara says, no, not necessarily. Mimai. How do you know? Dilma. Shani hatam kevan dechavre kegufei damin. Over there, you're attaching it. You're tying the string to the ezov. You're sticking and tying and attaching the rod to the ezov, right? Here, the handkerchief's not attached to it. The glove is not attached to it. So how do you know that's going to be considered that is holding that? If you attach A to B, holding A is holding B. But if A and B are not attached, then who says that holding B through A is considered holding B? That's the difference. So says the Gemara, Ela mehacha. Rava said that's not the end of the day. I have another proof. Here it is. Nafal, this is also a Mishnah in Masechet Para, not in Perek Yud Bet, but earlier on, I think it's Perek Vav, earlier on in Masechet Para, says Perek Vav, says the Mishnah, Nafal mishofoforet leshoket. Now, the process of efer paraduma is you have to take paraduma, you have to burn it. Now that's burnt to ashes. You have to take the ashes. You have to take special water, put it in. Everything was done in stoneware, and you have this water in the stoneware in the kli, and you have to put some of this ashes into this water and mix it. Right? That's how you make efer para. They make mehatat. That's how you make mehatat. So you have to put some of this in the water, so the ashes in the water, right? The pasuk reads, "Velakchu latame me'afar serefat hachatat." You have to take, again, talking about ulkachtem, velakchu, they should take La tameh, for this individual that's tameh, and you need efer paraduma to be mixed, you need to make mechatat. Velakhu la tameh me'afar serefat hachatat. You take the efer of paraduma, venatan alav ma'im chayim el keli, and you have to mix it with water. But you have to take the efer. So now the Mishnah says, what if the vessel, the kli that has the efer, tipped over, and some of the efer fell into the water? You didn't do it. It happened, right? So the Mishnah says that is not good. Nafal mishfoferet lo shoket pasul. If it fell by itself from shefoferet to the shoket, is pasul. It doesn't count. It doesn't work. So says Rava, that's only if it happened by not an action of you, but it's mashma hahi pilohu kasher. If you took the shfoferet and you tipped it over in order to pour some of the efer in the water, that's kasher. That's how you see, you could infer from the Mishnah that because it nafal, it fell, is pasul. But if you did, if you poured it through the vessel, you took the vessel and you poured it, it's kasher. In other words, you didn't stick your hand inside the thing and take some efer and sprinkle it on the water. You took the kli, you're not touching the efer, you're just pouring it. So you're holding the kli, you're touching, you're handling, you're pouring the efer through a davar acher that's not attached this time. The kli is not attached to the efer, contains it. You pour it in, and that's kasher. And that the pasuk says, "Velakach me'efer apara." You're taking the efer. That verbiage of lakach could be going on, holding it through a vessel that's not attached to it. So when I'm holding this shefoferet, this glass, this bucket, stone, whatever, and pouring, it's considered me taking the efer. So it will be the same thing, me through a handkerchief holding a lulav. So says the Gemara.
Not the same. Okay.
Says the Gemara, Amai. Ulkacho v'natan v'lakchu v'natan amar. It says we have to take v'lakchu me'afar serefat hachatat. So Amar Ela lav shma mina. You see from here, lekicha yidei davar acher shma lekicha. That you hold something through a davar acher is considered still holding it. Considered lekicha. Ve'amar Rabba. So that was the argument of Rava, which halacha is like him. Ve'amar Rabba. This is a third argument, third contrast between Rabba and Rabba. Ve'amar Rabba lo ladus inish lulava be'oshana dilma natli tarfi. Says you should not, if you have a bundle already, right, and you took the lulav out, or the lulav came out, and now you want to stick the lulav inside that bundle that you have. So your hadassim and aravot are in the bundle, and now you want to shtup in the lulav. It says don't do that, says Rabbah. Why? Because the pressure that you're going to put to stick it in is going to be maybe tearing off some of the leaves, some of the leaves of either the hadas or the arava, and those leaves are going to be now inside this bundle. They're not attached, and they're going to be chasitza, right? So don't do it. Lo ladus inish lulava behoshana, the dilma natri tarfi, maybe the tarfi, the leaves are going to fall, vehavu chatzitza, and it will be a chatzitza. The Rava Amar, Rava said, no problem. Remember, this is the Teimani question. They have all this extra hadassim there. Rava says, well, maybe this is a little worse. Rava says, min bemino eno chotzitz. When you have the same min, the same species, that's not going to be a halachic chatzitza, so there's no problem. If you wanna push in the lulav inside the bundle, it's fine, halachically speaking. Maybe not a practically advisable thing, but halachically it's not chatzitza. V'amar Rabba, another contrast. Lo liguz inish lulava behoshana. Well, this is really the same concept. You should not trim, you should not cut your lulav when it's in the bundle. Because if you cut it from the bottom, for instance, now you have some detached leaves of the lulav that are going to be between your hand, between you and the actual lulav that's bundled together with hadassim and aravot. The mishtayri hutza, those lulav leaves that are now going to be surrounding it, that are cut off from it, have a chatzitza, it will be chatzitza. And Rava Amar, min bemino eno chotzes. Rava says the same idea over here, that min bemino, in the same species, is not going to be chotzes. Ve'amar Rabba. Another contrast between Rabba and Rava. Hadas shel mitzvah asur lahariach bo. Etrog shel mitzvah mutar lahariach bo. Hadas of the mitzvah is asur to smell it. Etrog of mitzvah is mutar to smell it. Now, just like we know that we darshened earlier on that the schach, right, of sukkah is asur ba'ana'ah. We learned this from Chagigav. We learned from Korban Chagigav, just like that's asur. There's also asur. No, it's comparable to the schach, and the arba minim also are comparable. You see many equations between them, many different things that we learn, to the degree that Rabbi Yehuda learns that the schach could only be from the arba minim, right? So we understand why they will be comparable, and so therefore says Rabbah, once is asur ba'ana'ah, you can't do the primary thing that's made for hadas. Primarily is used for smelling. You don't eat hadas, right? You smell hadas. So therefore, smelling it, which is the primary hana'ah you take from it, that would be asur, because this is a hadas shel mitzvah. You're not supposed to be. But etrog, the primary hana'ah from it is what? Eating it. So if you want to do a side thing of smelling it, that's okay. That's fine. My tama, what's the reason? Hadas de lerechakai, hadas that is standing for being smelled, that's the primary hana'ah. Ki aksiyeh, once you make it muktzeh for mitzvah, once you dedicate it for mitzvah, then you should no longer be using it as its primary hana'ah of smelling it. But etrog de lachilakai, but etrog primarily is standing to be eaten. That's the primary hana'ah, the benefit that you would take from it. And therefore, even though that you made it muktzeh for mitzvah, you could have side derivative benefits from it, which is smelling it, as long as you're not eating it, which would be the primary benefit. So, ki aksiyeh machila aksiyeh, because when you made it muktzeh from eating it, not from smelling it, because that's not the primary hana'ah, and hence it will be mutar. Ve'amar Rabba, and Rabba said another thing, another halacha, hadas bemechubar mutar la'ariach bo. Etrog bemechubar asur la'ariach bo. Hadas, when this is a Hilchot Shabbat thing, right? Shabbat and Yom Tov. Now we went from halachot of Sukkot to halachot of Yom Tov and Shabbat. Says the Gemara, says Rabbah, a hadas that's attached to the ground, it's mutar la'ariach bo. Because what do you do with hadas? Usually you smell it. And you can smell it even when it's attached to the ground. So if you're not concerned, you're going to come take it off and cut it. Why would you cut it? You can smell whatever you need to do with it. You could do it right here and now. You don't have to cut it. So therefore, we're not concerned you're going to come to cut it. If we allow you to smell it while being attached to the ground, we're not concerned you're going to come to snip it and cut it off. By etrog, usually when you walk over to a etrog tree, right? What happens? You pick some etrog because you want to eat them. You can't eat them when they're attached to the ground. So therefore, if we allow you to smell it, right, you may come to say, and take it off. And that will be a problem, right? So therefore, we're not going to allow you to smell. It actually becomes upcoming Birkat Ilanot questions. Can a person smell flowers while they're attached to the trees on Shabbat and Yom Tov? Becomes somewhat of a machloket between Ashkenazim and Sfaradim, but nevertheless, the etrog bemechubar asur la'ariach bo. The etrog is asur to take off, and therefore it's asur to smell it, because we're concerned you're going to come to take it off, because that's what usually people do. My tama, what's the reason of the difference? Hadas de le'ariach kai. Hadas that's only for smelling. isharit le, lo ati le migziyeh. If you allow him to smell it while being mechubar lekarka, attached to the ground, you're not going to come to take it off, because you could do the hana'ah right here while it's attached. You don't need to take it off. So people don't usually go and cut off and snip branches of hadas. Etrog de achila, but etrog that's primary hana'ah is by achila. People usually take it off the tree, and therefore a sharit, if you allow him to go smell it, he may come to actually picking it from the tree, and therefore we don't let him smell it either. Amar Rabba, another third halacha from Rabba, lulav biyamin vetrog bismol. You hold lulav and you want to do nanuim, you hold lulav in your right hand, which is more chashuv, and etrog in your left. Now you think that etrog is more chashuv, right? So why do you do that? Says the Gemara, because there are 4 mitzvot of arba minim. It's not 1 mitzvah, right? Lulav, hadas, arava are 3 mitzvot, and etrog is the 4th one. And therefore, hani telata mitzvot v'hai chada mitzvah. The bundle of lulav has 3 of them, so that's more important than the 1 mitzvah of etrog. Even if you say that they are me'akev zeh, even if you say that they without each other they're not worth anything, but still at the end of the day, once you have 4 of them, there's 3 mitzvot on one and 1 mitzvah on the other, and therefore you take the 3 with the right hand, which is more chashuv, and the etrog with the left hand, which is less chashuv. Amar le Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabbi Zerika. Rabbi Yirmiyah said to Rabbi Zerika, "My tam lo mevarechinan ela al netilat lulav." Why don't we say al netilat etrog, right? Why lulav? Now this is not the bundle anymore, right? You're singling out 1 out of the 4. So say al netilat etrog, right? Why lulav? So says the Gemara, because lulav also has an element of chashivut over all the other ones. Ho'il vegavoah mikulam, because lulav is the tallest one. So says the Gemara, with no problem, hold the etrog like this, taller than that, and say the bracha, right? So what that is taller? Veligbe leetrog velivrich. You hold it higher and say the bracha. He says, no, that's not what I mean. The tree that the lulav grows on, that is the tallest one. It's chashuv, but you have a tall, large tree that is more important. So therefore, we say the bracha on netilat lulav, not on etrog or the other species. Bezrat Hashem will continue starting the mitzvah of nanuim and the Mishnah on Amud Bet in the days to come. Chazak Baruch.